Welcome on in Ashwings and Shadow Ashwings today. We're going to do a little bit of a deck tech video where I'm going to talk about my armory deck that I bring for every week. I'm slowly upgrading it every single day, but this is effectively what I am running. Vynnset, Iron Maiden, she's been really fun to play, honestly. I'm sure all the other Rune Blades are obviously just as fun, but Vynnset's just got a different appeal to it. Kind of that you really have to synergize well and make sure that happens. So I won an armory for the first time on her just this last Monday, and I wanted to kind of talk about the deck, where I'm at with it, and what upgrades I'm looking to make for it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. What I wanted to say is shout out to Nico Brew, I believe. A lot of their understanding of the deck and their videos in regards to kind of going over the intricacies of each little play line is what really made me become a much better Vynnset player, which I've certainly appreciated. So let's go over what is essentially my main board of equipment into most builds so far. I have not really had to put my other two pieces of equipment into this, but I'm still doing some searching. Obviously, we are running Flail of Agony and Grimoire. I'm not running the shield. The one block is not like the most coolest thing. Getting one of your cards to get go again is pretty good here, and the additional arcane barrier is often really worth it because of the fact that sometimes Aurora comes in for 2 arcane as opposed to 1. You also have just, being able to block the 2 arcane with my arm piece and everything is going to be better. But I like Grimoire, having it being able to come out and then give your next non-attack action go again. It's great for Funeral Moon, and it's great for Funeral Moon. That's really what it's good for. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of the armor. I am running a Crown of Providence, a Fyendal Spring Tunic, a Vexing Quill Hand, and a Sutcliffe's Suede Hide. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Alex, what the hell is this all about? So Spellbound Creepers is expensive, and because it's expensive, I don't want to buy one because I don't know how much it's going to really change my game plan as Vynnset. Vynnset really cares a lot about sometimes being able to play 2 cards from your Banish Zone, sometimes even 3 if you have the rune chance for it. But in most cases, you want to have just about, I'd say, maximum of 2 Blood Debt cards in your Banish Zone for her effects. So really, Sutcliffe's is just down to the wire. I can go ahead and destroy this during the reaction step, pay a resource. Let's say I have an additional red in my hand, and then I can break the chain on a Deathly Whale, which we'll see later, to then get more rune chance back and be able to swing something else. This is the go again that Spellbound Creepers would effectively still be giving you. The only thing is that you're not playing something more powerful like Revel in Runeblood at instant speed like you would with Spellbound Creepers. Is Creepers the best foot piece for this deck? Absolutely. Do I have the money to purchase one? I do, but I'm going to hold off onto it until I'm completely comfortable with the deck, and it might be my last purchase in the deck. Outside of that, we are also running Crown of Providence. This is kind of in case we need to filter out our arsenal, in case, we want to get a 5-card hand, and we still want to be able to utilize those cards from hand. I've liked Crown of Providence a lot, but I think we're all in agreement that Face Purgatory is certainly the better headpiece for Runeblade overall. So Crown of Providence currently does the job for right now. It still blocks for 2, and I can filter my arsenal to get a 5th card to my hand. But of course, if all else fails, getting a Face Purgatory is only about $40, which I think is cheaper than a Crown of Providence. So we'll keep that in mind. And then of course, Tunic. Tunic is really good. Tunic is, most of my matches are Tunic, but Tunic is really specific for certain things. So and then, of course, Vexing Quill Hand. I think this is like just the best arm piece for this hero. And so we go off of that there. Flail of Agony, of course, being the better weapon for Vynnset. Just being able to pay a life and threaten a rune chant is really good, because it means you don't need to have any cards in your hand. You can just swing. So that's great. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go into my main deck, talk a little bit about the main deck itself, what I chose for the main deck, and how it all synergizes with one another. So first, we'll take a look. We have 3 Beseech the Demagon. This is a shadow action, very, very powerful. It effectively just gives +3 to your next, or to a target banished zone card. So this could be anything that you put into the banished zone that's an attack. You just cost 0. It's a shadow action, so you get to activate Vynnset's ability to make one of those rune chants unpreventable. Then, of course, we are also running Funeral Moon in the main board. Funeral Moon is just good. I mean, if you take any damage on your turn, you can just say, hey, I'm going to make a rune chant, and then you can start your turn by banishing your Blood Debt card, come in with it, or your Rune Gate card and come in with it, getting you that additional one there, and you can play it at instant speed if you lost life. Very powerful. Then we have kind of our go again stuff here. So we have Mauve Skies. Mauve Skies is really, really cool. It's not used in Viscerai so much these days, but Vynnset loves it. It's go again on your Runeblade card, and if it hits, you get Rune Chance, which you can then break the chain, and then play your other Blood Debt card that you happen to have stacked in here. So, like I said, you want to kind of stack 2 of the cards in there in order for you to kind of get a better feel of, comboing and doing these 2 attacks a turn kind of deal. The next card is, of course, a card that is a staple in the deck, Shadow Puppetry. Again, it's a go again for your Rune Gate cards. It also allows you to banish the top card of your deck if it does hit, so you get to look for those additional cards, to possibly play as a secondary attack into this here. We are then running 3 Deadwood Dirge, a great card, came out of Rosetta. Obviously, if you start with 1 rune chant, you can make 3, so it allows for any of your rune-gated cards to be turned online outside of Widespread Annihilation, but this is still really, really good in that regard. Another card that is just a banger in this set and deck is Malefic Incantation. We have the red in the main board here. It's just really, really good because effectively anytime you attack with it, you'll get another rune chant on the back end. And if you are taking damage on your turn, or if you're taking damage and your opponent's taking damage on a Deathly Wail turn, you're going to get 2 more rune chants off of it. And if you found a way to give it go again, you'll have 3 rune chants, 1 off the Malefic, 2 off the Deathly Wail, close the combat chain, come in with your other Rune Gate card, and attack again. In most cases with these combos, you're really threatening somewhere around 18 damage a turn for what feels like nothing, right? A couple points of life lost, but you come in for 18 with a bunch of disruption. So it is important here. Speaking of disruption, of course, we are running the 3 copies of every one of our widespreads. The card's just good. I don't love it going into Florian or Verdance because getting their Earth cards into Banish is what they want, but it is really, really cool to at least throw these out. I mean, like Widespread Annihilation in most decks, this is really, really tough to deal with. The same goes with any of these, right? If your opponent's arsenaling a whole bunch of stuff, you're going into Bolton or Aurora, and maybe Aurora's not putting instants into her arsenal, this is going to go ahead and trigger. They're going to get rid of their arsenal. Same with Widespread. This is just kind of an off-the-top deal. It's mill in a way, but really this is the fact that it comes in and it costs you 2 as opposed to the 3 or the 4. Having it come in for 2 is certainly effective enough to where if you have like an all red hand, you can at least still hard cast this for 6 damage, and it's got the same stats as like a Command and Conquer, for instance. So pretty good there. Then we are running the other set of really special Majestic Rune Gates, the Eloquent Eulogy. This is our 1 for 4. So again, this is the if you only have 1 card left in hand after blocking out a whole turn, you have Eloquent Eulogy, you can banish this, and then you'll get that rune chant, and then you can just play that. So it's a 0 for 4 with 1 rune chant in the back. So effectively a 0 for 5. And you get an Eloquence token, which allows you to make your next attack or your next non-attack action get go again. Now you'll notice out of all of our non-attack actions, right, almost all of them have go again. Funeral Moon's the only one that does not. The Eloquence token is kind of a bait in some cases, but Funeral Moon is able to utilize it. So if you do end up having that opportunity to do it and you can't play it at instant speed, then using that Eloquence token to play it from your hand or from your banish zone, just right out the gate there is really, really good. So now that we've kind of gone through these, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the star of the show, really. And like, again, I love a deck that cares a lot about the overall game plan of the deck being in common, because a common card is normally nowhere near as powerful as some of the Majestics, right? But when you take a look at a card like Deathly Whale, it gets the job done. We are running 3 red, 3 blue, and 2 blue, 3 yellow. Something I have in here temporarily is a Bounding Demagon. This should be a 3rd blue Deathly Whale. The reason being is because I didn't have one, and I figured whatever, might as well keep a 3 block in here that costs 0 to play, even out those odds. But a blue Deathly Whale is going to be really, really nice here. I see a lot of Vynnset players getting pretty high off of blue Deathly Whale, and normally you're just running these guys here. But the blue Deathly Whale, really it's just Deathly Whale in general, does a lot of work here because you're not going to be able to read it on camera here. But if you look up Deathly Whale, effectively what it is, it costs 3, comes in for 6, blocks 3, and if either hero has lost life at the end of this combat chain, then you gain a rune chant for each hero that did lose life. So if you play a Shadow non-attack action and then you attack into Deathly Whale and you utilize Vynnset's ability, you get those 2 rune chants from Deathly Whale because they can't prevent 1 arcane, and you lost a life. And then if you have even a Malefic Incantation out, you'll get a 3rd rune chant from Malefic Incantation when playing Deathly Whale. If that Shadow non-attack action gave this go again, and you happen to have another Deathly Whale in your banish zone, you can end the combat chain and then play your other Deathly Whale, therefore coming in for that effective 19 damage, and then being able to go again. Well, you don't have go again on the 2nd Deathly Whale in most cases. You could if you were playing something like Spellbound Creepers, but in this situation, you are really just trying to rock out at least 2 attacks, and it does really, really well. Just kind of stacking those rune chants up on top of one another, getting yourself prepped for that next turn where you can have more things to do. Then we are also, of course, playing a 3 Deathly Delight. This one allows you to heal. This is pretty good if you're not going into like a Reaping Blade deck. In most cases, people will kind of make it neutral to where they'll take some rune chant damage just so you don't gain life. Again, that's kind of another bait of this deck, is the fact that the deck looks like it's going to do something crazy with Deathly Delight, but Deathly Delight only comes in for 5 and it costs 2, and it still blocks for 3, so it's good. But effectively, if you lose a life to make the next rune chant unpreventable with Deathly Delight, you're only really gaining 1 life because you lost a life, you gained a life, and then you gained a life. So you're really only gaining 1 life. So it's not super worth it. This is mainly just another 2-cost Rune Gate card that you can utilize if you were not able to get your rune chants up to come in with something like a Deathly Whale or any of your other widespread stuff. Then, of course, speaking of 3 costs, we do also have the Phantom Banshee, and then another 2 costs, the Phantom Wraith. 2 costs, they're easy to get out. This one comes in for 6, it's just damage. This one is 3 costs, so you need 3 rune chants to get it out, and it comes in for 7. So a nice breakpoint there, but effectively these are just damage. the cool part is that if you just tell your opponent this is just damage, in most cases, they don't care about blocking it. So it's a great way to kind of just say, hey, you know, we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to take some damage here and then crack back with a pretty nice on hit. Regardless, they're taking damage and you're not. So that's what we like to see. Then we're going to go ahead and go into the sideboard a little bit. This is where Nico Brew kind of helped me think through what I'm doing for my own sideboard in kind of making an aggressive package and a defensive package. Your aggressive package is a lot more against heroes that are trying to defend a lot and block out. Their whole goal is kind of an end game, whereas, a long game more specifically. And then you have an aggressive package, or a defensive package for those very aggressive heroes, in which you can go ahead and just block out efficiently with a bunch of the 3 blocks and the defense reactions in your deck. And then you can come in with some pretty disruptive on hits by just simply making a rune chant every single turn, swing something, and then you just kind of go from there. So you're not going to have those crazy pop-off turns in a aggressive build because you are being more defensive, but your on hits are still significantly more threatening while also providing good defense to allow you to kind of block out a lot more. So for this aggressive package, let me go ahead and see if I can get this together here and show y'all what I'm talking about. So for our aggressive package, we have our copies of Machinations of Dominion. This is another go again card for your rune gate stuff, because you will be making a rune chant at the beginning of your turn in most cases. Machination will be live. It'll give your next Runeblade attack action card Overpower and then go again also. So that helps kind of close out games with that Overpower. Then, of course, we are running 3 Envelop in Darkness. Envelop in Darkness, in most cases with this aggressive package, we're running Tunic. Obviously, for me right now, I'm only running Tunic, so it doesn't matter either way. But in a more defensive package, you're probably going to be running something like Dyadic Carapace. But in the offensive package, you're going to want to run Tunic. Those extra resources will help kind of get a lot of this over. Speaking of more aggression, we of course have 3 copies of Revel in Runeblood. Revel in Runeblood is not as effective as... it's not as effective as if I had Creepers, but it is still fairly effective because I can give a card go again, or a card will get go again, and then I can play Revel from my arsenal or something of the sort, get 4 more rune chants, and then swing that second card I have stacked in my banish zone for nothing, right? And so that's always great. You can park a Widespread Annihilation down here and then have that come in last when your opponent doesn't really have anything left to block with. And you're not going to get a trigger off of that in most cases, but you are going to be able to get some more damage through. And then finally, I am running 3 copies of Yellow Malefic Incantation in this aggressive build. This is effectively just because this card is so good. If you get 2 of them out and every single time you play a Runeblade card from Banish, you get 2 rune chants, you're going to be rune gating every single turn. And that's what you want. You always want to make sure it's online. Some turns you may have to take a more defensive stance, but in most cases, you're going to want it to be online. And this is a way to go about doing that. So we've got that there. This is our aggressive package. And then our more defensive package, we expect to be in the game for a little bit longer, maybe taking some off turns to be able to stack up some rune chants. And that's where a card like Oblivion comes in. This is the legendary Vynnset specialization that allows you to summon Narcith, the Soul Harrower. So no real effect here for her in regards to banishing a card from their soul, unless, of course, they are playing Prism or Bolton. That's pretty cool if that happens. But effectively, this is just a 0 cost 6 attack that you have on your board. If your opponent doesn't do anything about this, they're actively ignoring the threat, and you just get to keep on coming in with a Soul Harrower at the end of your turn after a go again. So it's a great thing to have on the board to kind of like make your opponent have to choose where that's coming in from. So I like Narcith a lot. Very cool stuff. Then I'm running 2 Pummel. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Why would you do that? The reason being is because in this more defensive package, we're holding back a little bit more. And because we're holding back a little bit more, we need to have those crazier pop-off turns. Throwing a pummel in Arsenal is a great way for you to go, okay, if you finally have an opening and your opponent already says they don't want to block because they feel like they're the aggressor and they're really trying to, like push open a whole bunch of opportunity and just keep that tempo in their favor. The second you pummel them with something, it feels bad. It will ruin their day. It's also a great way to close out games in those longer games if they have a lot of armor. Being able to kind of get over that. Most people are trying to block on rate at the end of the game, and this card just says, cool, you blocked on rate, I'm still going to deal 4, and you discard a card. So Pummel's pretty good. I'm only running 2 copies. We're also running 3 copies of Reduce to Runechant. I am deciding on whether or not I want this to be Sink Below, but I genuinely think this card is just so good, and I'm almost always going to have a Runechant up, like very, very niche scenario in which I don't. So to have one up, this is a 0 for 4 that makes another Runechant. I like it a lot. I think it's significantly better. I think it's probably the best defense reaction in this deck. But of course, mileage may vary. Sink Below or Fate Foreseen, probably Sink Below is a better one there to also filter your hand if you happen to get those Runeblade hands, which can happen in Vynnset. So that's a thing to look into. Another couple of cards here is obviously Succumb to Temptation. This is another card where your opponent's probably not going to want to block. And if they don't want to block, then Succumb to Temptation just says, cool, you didn't block. My next attack action that hits is going to go ahead and come in and discard a card from your hand. I get to see what their hand looks like, and then I get to discard a card from it, effectively turning off their whole chain, which is really, really good. Also on top of it, Succumb works a bit like the Spellbound Creepers, Revel, and Runeblood combo, in which if they've taken arcane damage, you can play this at instant speed to give your next attack go again, because this will trigger the go again on here. So even if you don't have go again on one of your attack actions, if you're able to play this at instant speed, you get that action point back and you're able to continue going with your turn. So that's a way you can kind of provide a blowout turn to your opponent while also disrupting them with something like Succumb to Temptation. And then finally, I'm running 2 copies of Haunting Rendition. This package I have not run very frequently, right? I think I didn't even get to run it on Monday when I was going against players. But Haunting Rendition seems to be a very interesting card, and I'm not sure if I want to run any more than 2, simply because it's just a block card, and at some point you can discard this to prevent 2, and then get a Runechant. So again, this is that Runechant stacking level of stuff. You know, if you're able to get 4 Runechants up, and then a Deadwood Dirge in your hand, you can destroy a Deadwood. You can destroy a Runechant more specifically. Come up to 6, play Oblivion, give your attack go again with a Shadow non-attack action. Attack with something from your Banish Zone, but first you'll play Oblivion to create Narset, and then that way you'll be able to attack with Narset immediately afterwards. So this is kind of the setup here. More cards to keep in mind for this is we have Grasp of the Arknight for this more defensive build against aggro decks. So if you're trying to be defensive, Grasp of the Arknight is pretty good. Battleborn 2, I'm not sure how great this is going to be going into Jarl, but it is a nice card. And you're not normally going to be using its effect, but if you only have a blue in hand after banishing your first card, and you already have a Runechant, your turn can simply just be pitch that to Grasp and get another Runechant set up for your next turn. A lot of this deck kind of works around like keeping that momentum of almost always losing life, but like these cards, you might as well think of them in your hand. This is a Banish Zone here is like an arsenal that is face up that your opponent can see, but they're cards in your hand effectively. So it's important to have those stacked up with at least 1 to 2, or sometimes even 3 Runegate cards to really make sure that you have the best advantage on your turn. And then finally, we have Ebb and Fold. This is really just for wizards. I don't see myself using this as a tech for anything outside of wizards because the Spell Void 2 is so good. And going into wizards, you'll essentially have Arcane Barrier 1, Arcane Barrier 2, or 2 AB1 with the Vexing Quill hand and the Tome, the Grimoire. And then you have Spell Void 2 for your headpiece to prevent any of that crazier additional damage. But yeah, that's effectively my deck here. It works quite well, I'd say. It's a pretty well-oiled machine. If there is something I would like to get is probably a Dyadic Carapace to allow me to... because I think I'm one card short in this deck in theory. I'm one card short in my 80, which would give me a Dyadic Carapace to replace Tunic for this defensive package against aggressive decks. And then I'd also like to swap out Crown of Providence with the Face Purgatory. Outside of that, I'm fine with Sutcliffe's right now. Again, that Sutcliffe's upgrade into Spellbound Creepers is a long time coming. I would expect they probably reprint the card before I actually end up buying one, but I like the setup a lot. I think it really does great work when it comes to how I want to pilot the deck. Because again, a lot of it is really just you're making sure you're stacking your pitch zone to be as effective as possible. You're making sure that you're stacking your banish zone to make sure that you're getting as much of value as you can out of a turn. In most cases, you want to you might need to take an off turn to get a card and banish, right? It might just be really, really bad. But at the end of the day, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is come in with 2 Rune Gate cards, present somewhere between 16 to 18 points of damage naturally. And then, of course, any pumps you play are additional damage on top of it. So if you're playing something like Beseech the Demagon into Phantom Banshee, that comes in for 10. And then if you can play your Sutcliffes and then play another from Banish, then you're good to go. But in most cases, you don't have Rune Chance for that. That's where, again, Deathly Wail is like really the star of the show. Because if you come in with Deathly Wail, you utilize that Shadow non-attack action, you get 2 Rune Chance back from this. And then if you already have those Malefic incantations on the board, you can then send in something like a Phantom Banshee immediately afterwards. If this was pumped with Beseech the Demagon, this will come in for 9, plus 3 Rune Chance, and then 1 will be made on the back end. Then, so that's 12 damage for this. Then the chain closes, you get 2 Rune Chance because you utilize Vynnset's ability for that Shadow non-attack action, and then you can come in with those remaining 3 Rune Chance with something like a Phantom Banshee. You can even utilize something like a Widespread Destruction or a Widespread Ruin. If you're lucky enough to even have 4, you can play, if you have 2 Malefic incantations on the board, you can play Widespread Annihilation from your Banish Zone too. So a lot of value in Deathly Wail specifically, kind of getting that overall combo down. But that is my Vynnset Iron Maiden deck. It's due for some upgrades for sure, but for right now, I'm really, really excited with how it's come to be, and I hope to continue to, provide some armory results. Let you guys know, if you're not following me on Blue Sky, I do armory recaps every single time I go to an armory. But a quick rundown for this is effectively round 1, I went against a Bolton. I pretty much won because my opponent charged too close to the sun towards the end of the game, and I was able to kind of get it over there. I didn't really play my defensive package into Bolton, and the reason I didn't is because I expected it to not be super aggressive because they weren't running combo Bolton. But I think I'll probably end up playing it into that if I go against them again, because it was quite an aggressive package for a deck. Then we also have my second opponent, which is Florian. Florian it's a tough matchup because I need to be the aggressor, because if they get turned online at any point, I'm pretty much done for. So my whole thing is bring in that aggressive package, come in with a whole bunch of really powerful attacks, present some more damage through rune chants and through additional buffs. And it got down to the wire where I was at 2 life and they took a rune chant to go down to 1 life. And I drew into a 0-cost Shadow non-attack action and was able to play my attack action from Arsenal in order to attack them with an unpreventable rune chant, and that ended the game there. So that was really, really cool to see. I was very happy to be able to end a game with an unpreventable rune chant. That made me feel very good about the deck. And something to also consider is that while rune chants are a great way to get out your rune gate cards, don't feel bad about hard casting them. And by hard casting, I mean just playing a pitching for that card to attack with it from your hand. In most cases, you're still presenting the same amount of damage. You're just keeping that one card that you banished in the banish zone and still presenting at least 6 to 8 damage through the cards you have. So it's entirely up to you as a player, but don't feel bad about hard casting cards. Hard casting cards sometimes is just what is going to keep our life total healthy and also still provide us with a more aggressive package into our opponents. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and go down there, give that like button a little smooch. You can also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. On top of it, if you have any critiques or comments or anything in regards to my deck, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I genuinely would love to hear from other Runeblade players, more specifically other Vynnset players, how they feel about the overall strategy of the deck. Of course, I still haven't tested absolutely everything into this, but I made these changes like 30 minutes before I went to the armory last night, and I won. I do believe Deathly Whale Blue is the key to making this deck really pop, and I think that is something that I hope a lot of other Vynnset players end up being high on. But of course, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, if you want to support the channel in a different way, you can also become a channel member. Channel members do get access to our podcast, The Common Language, earlier than everybody else does. And then on top of it, you also get access to emotes and loyalty badges, and we might even be doing some channel giveaways at some point here to kind of talk over what we're looking to do. So thank you all so much for watching. I do really appreciate it, and I hope to continue to provide you with reports on how Vynnset has been doing at my local armory. And I will see all of you wonderful Ashwings in our next video.